Mrs. Kashani is here from the Central Organization for Rural Cooperatives of Iran. Mrs. Sabur is here from Taawun Insurance Company. And Mr. Hassani is here from CURPC, Central Union of State Rural Production Cooperatives of Iran. We don't want to lose more time. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad, despite technical issues, we are able to start the meeting. Good morning, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this consultation with members from Iran. Let me also wish everyone an early International Women's Day, which happens to be tomorrow. This is the second consultation that we are having, and this time with members in Iran. The first one which we had was with members in the Philippines, which was a very engaging discussion. And we are hoping that we will have a similar one today to better understand how the statement of cooperative identity is being put into practice in Iran. Given the scope of the Asia-Pacific region, we felt that it would be good to have consultations either country-wise, where we have more members, or on a sub-region basis. In the Philippines, we have close to 14 members, so we had the consultation with only members in Philippines. Similarly, we have in Iran, we have 10 members, and I'm very thankful to everyone for being here today. And it spans across the spectrum of cooperatives, from agriculture to education to finance to insurance to ITs. And we also have unions and apexes. So it's quite a diverse representation of cooperatives from Iran into the ICA membership. And of course, women and youth cut across all the activities that are and cooperatives in Iran. As you all know, in 2020, the ICA celebrated its 125th anniversary and the 25th statement of the cooperative identity. The ICA plans to celebrate the World Congress in 2021. This was to have happened in 2020, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had to shift it first to March and now to November, December 2021. And the theme of the 33rd Congress is on deepening the cooperative identity. And what we hope to do during the Congress is to reflect on how the cooperative identity guides the day-to-day operations, the practical challenges that cooperatives face, how the cooperative statement of identity is used to evaluate cooperatives in terms of how the cooperatives is set apart from other forms of organizations, given our membership and our value-based structure, how it fosters member interest and responsibilities, and finally also to see how the statement of cooperative identity is effective when we look at it in terms of relationship with governments and stakeholders. Is it facilitating? Is it inhibiting? What are the issues? Because government and other stakeholders are also important. These are some of the issues that we plan to take up as part of the consultation. And we do hope, based on the input that we get from members, that we will be able to present it in the Congress and also see how we can use it to develop a plan of action. So that's what we hope to do through these consultations. And in order to help us, we have two resource persons. The first is Ms. Om Devi Malla. She is the ICA Global Board member from Nepal and is also a member of the Congress Advisory Committee. So her presence here will also ensure that inputs provided by members from the Asia Pacific region are conveyed to the Congress Advisory Committee. She is also the vice chair of the Nepal Cooperative Federation, National Cooperative Federation of Nepal, and she is also a member of parliament in Nepal. So we are very thankful and happy to have Ms. Om Devi Malla join us. Professor Korimoto is the chair of the ICAP Research Committee. He is professor of the cooperative program at the Institute of Solidarity-Based Society at Hosei University in Tokyo. And he's also been a board member and chief researcher of the Consumer Cooperative Institute in Japan since 1998. Professor Kurimoto also was part of the Principals Committee, which in 2015 had come out with the guidance note on the cooperative principles. And as we all know, the principles are not something cast in stone. It is meant to be reflected upon. It's meant to see how, given current situations, how trends are happening in the global economy, how does the interpretation of these principles change with time? And we are also now in a point in time where we are going through this impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has brought about a lot of changes in the way we work, the way we interact with each other, the impact which it's had on cooperatives, impact it had on society, the environment, the economy. So it's a whole set of issues which have been affected because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in light of that, it's also good to look at, so how do we interpret the principles? What does it mean to us in our current time? So it's very timely. And the fact that it's also going to be taken up during the Congress is timely. So I think having these discussions and understanding members' perspective on how they see issues around cooperative principles and values I think we are at a good point in time to discuss it. Originally, we would have had time for introductions, given that it's already happened. What the session, the way it will work is that we will hear the perspectives provided by our members, by our two resource members. I got a message from Ms. Om Devi Malla that given she's not in Kathmandu, she's outside Kathmandu, she's having some network issue. So what I would like to request is for Professor Kurimoto to make his presentation, and after which we will invite Ms. Om Devi Malla to give her presentation. And once both of them have made their presentations, then we'll open it up for discussions. Members in Iran can comment, ask them questions, and we can also have a discussion amongst ourselves, trying to look at some of the issues relating to the statement of cooperative identity. So I'll stop there. And I will now request Professor Kurimoto to share his screen and make his presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Balu, for introduction. And I'd like to talk about how we can deepen our understanding of the cooperative identity statement and how we can put them into practice. So I shall share the slides. Okay, thank you for your patience. So deepening cooperative identity from the Asia-Pacific perspectives. Why cooperative identity matters now? We witness the growing inequality, political and social divides, while we are threatened by the consequences of climate change and rampant pandemics. To succeed overcoming these challenges, we desperately need the cooperation and solidarity among people. In such a difficult time, we have to address such global issues relying on our basics, namely the cooperative identity, crystallized in the ICA Statement on Cooperative Identity, agreed as the greatest common factor among worldwide cooperators in 1995. The ICA statement was included in the United Nations Cooperative Guidelines and the ILO Recommendation 193 on promotion of cooperatives. The ICA Principles Committee published the guidance note for cooperative principles in 2015 to help understanding and practicing principles, as Baru had mentioned.
به ما کمک میکنه بهتر بفهمیم.
Take a look. Very
یه نگاهی بکنید
50 years of journey from Rochdale to Manchester in England. Society's rule gradually evolved to principle since 1844.
मैले मोबाइलमा चला भनेको थिएँ के
Rochdale principles enshrined in the rule book from 1860. First configuration of cooperative principles in 1937 ICA Congress. Second configuration of cooperative principles in 1966 ICA Congress. And ILO Recommendation 127 on cooperatives in developing countries in 1966, the same year. And we have approved the ICA Identity Statement at 1995 ICA Congress in Manchester that contains the definition of cooperative, its values and principles that are universal in its essence. And just 15 years we took in producing such an identity statement. First coming from Alex Redrow's report on cooperatives in the year 2000 at the ICA 1980 Congress in Moscow. And then Lars Marcus, the president of the ICA, he has reported on the cooperatives and basic values at the 1988 Congress. And then Sven Åke Book report on cooperative values in a changing world at the ICA 1992 Congress held in Tokyo for the first time outside Europe. And finally, we approved the ICA Identity Statement in 1995 in Manchester. Let's just speak about the characteristics of Asia-Pacific cooperatives. Asia-Pacific region has a vast diversity of the political, legal system, economic system, level of development, culture and region, and very long history. Such a diversity makes regional political and economic integration very difficult. Asia-Pacific cooperatives operate under such circumstances. Asian cooperatives are characterized by the dominant state roles in regulation and promotion, while the Pacific cooperatives face strong competition with the for-profit sector. The British Empire introduced the Cooperative Credit Societies Act of India with strong government control in 1904. That became the prototype of cooperative legislation in most of the colonized countries. Even after the independence, such top-down tradition was inherited since national leaders had seen cooperatives as an engine of national development. The ICA Asia-Pacific has convened the biennial Cooperative Ministers' Conference since 1990, aiming to strengthen cooperative autonomy and independence based on the constructive partnership with the government. But the progress has been very slow. Deepening cooperative identity from Asia-Pacific perspectives. On the first principle on voluntary and open membership addresses no discrimination. In Asian context, the participation of women and youth is most relevant issue since male and senior leaders are prevalent in cooperatives area, reflecting on the embedded dominant culture. There are cooperatives exclusively composed of women in India, Iran, Malaysia, etc., to avoid gender discrimination, while women occupy a majority of membership and board members in consumer cooperation in Japan and South Korea. Today, I'm happy to see some female leaders attending this meeting. The youth is also underrepresented group, while the lack of youth participation may endanger the sustainability of cooperatives. On the second principle on democratic control, this is concerned with the internal governance of a cooperative. Recently, we witnessed the failure of governance leading to the serious setbacks of the cooperatives. For instance, in the United Kingdom and in Spain, the guidance notes to the cooperative principles exhibit guidelines for a wide range of governance issues. In Japan, to cope with the governance failures we have experienced in Japan, the Japanese Consumers Cooperative Union published the guidelines for sound governance about 20 years ago. Third principles on member economic participation. This principle deals with members' obligation in strengthening the capital of cooperatives. Our cooperative has inherent difficulty in raising capital because of limited return on investment and equal voting rights, one member, one vote principle. Some cooperatives in Australia and New Zealand were demutualized or they became the joint stock companies, but it is not so popular in most of the Asian countries. In Japan, agricultural cooperatives run the world-class bank, but huge amount of farmers' deposit is not effectively utilized, while consumer cooperatives build up members' share through monthly installment. Now, individual consumers, a member of the consumer cooperatives in Japan, has approximately 300 US dollars per capita as share capital. It's a huge amount in comparison with £1 in the UK. The fourth principle, autonomy and independence, is a principle newly added in 1995. It is especially relevant to the Asian cooperatives since cooperatives are still by and large under the strong state control. To establish a constructive partnership between cooperatives and government based on equality, both states and cooperatives need to change their attitude. The government has to confine itself to a legal supervision in accordance with the United Nations ILO guidelines, while the cooperatives has to build capacities in strategic planning and coordination so as to be more independent in policy making. Fifth principle on education, training, and information is a principle enlisted since the time of Rochdale pioneers. Member education is essential for the success of cooperatives, while employee training are conducted at various levels, from top management to the frontline employees. The school university cooperatives in many Asian countries are conducive to the cooperative development in the long run. So in this regard, I'm very happy to see a representative from the school cooperative in Iran is attending to this meeting. We'd like to ask the leaders to write a case study of women's participation in school cooperatives in the newly published book. In the information age, the importance of public relations is increasingly recognized, but cooperatives tend to lag behind in utilizing state-of-the-art digital devices. But nowadays, almost every day, we can listen to the online meetings, and we can communicate with our employees, our members via internet. So we should improve the capacity of such an communication. The sixth principle on the cooperatives cooperation among cooperatives, it is also relevant. Cooperatives of the same kind are naturally federated at regional and national levels, while the collaboration among different kinds of cooperatives need to be facilitated. In Japan, the direct transaction between consumers and producers, that is called Sanchoku, have been promoted by consumer and farmer cooperatives to enhance understanding each other and realize mutual benefits since the 70s, while the Japan Cooperative Alliance was set up as a think tank covering all types of cooperatives just 3 years ago. ASEAN Cooperative Organization, ACO, needs to create tangible benefits. And finally, seventh principles, concern for community, is a new principle added in 1995. This is related to cooperatives' community engagement. In the Asia-Pacific region, prone to natural disasters caused by earthquakes, tsunami, and typhoon cyclones that frequently brought formidable human and monetary losses. We can note the cooperative's response to such calamities in both rescue phase and rehabilitation phases. We can see many good examples. We observed the cooperative endeavors to rehabilitate victims' life in Indonesia, Iran, Sri Lanka, and so on after the Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami in 2004. After the Kobe earthquake in 1995 and East Japan earthquake tsunami in 2011, just a few days after, we shall commemorate 10th anniversary of this tsunami calamity. The Japanese cooperatives made tremendous efforts to rescue victims and help them to rehabilitate normal lives. So we need to find best practice of each cooperative in deepening cooperative identity in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kurimoto, for your providing the perspective on the principles and in particular how they are reflected in the Asia-Pacific region. I'm sure there'll be a number of questions which our members in Iran will have. But in terms of, I see that Ms. Om Devi Malla is back on screen. She has the network back. So I'd like to request her to make a presentation. And once we've heard her, then we can open up the floor for question answers and have a discussion on all the issues, questions which members have and issues which have been raised. So can I please request Ms. Om Devi Malla to share a screen and make her presentation?
Okay. Thank you, Walu Sahab.
You can use slideshow.
Yeah. Yeah. फुलो है ना सबै काटेर आयो यो सबै काटेर आयो रोज डेलहरु सबै काटेर आयो फोटो अफ गरिदिनु पर्छ सबै काटेर Thank you, Mr. Balu. Professor Dr. Kurimoto, all level of cooperative leader from Iran, Mr. Balu, Regional Director of ICAP, and family of ICAP. Today, I'm going to speak about a statement of cooperative identity and try to finish within 10 to 12 minutes. Thank you. I start my presentation. A background, the ICA Congress formally adopted Rosedale principles in 1937 as guidelines for cooperative to operate. The Statement of Cooperative Identity, SCI, as the combined document of cooperative principles and values, was developed by ICA Congress in 1995. Statement of Cooperative Identity as guide of operating cooperatives. The SCI is not a rigid document as rules. SCI is the ethical spirit to follow as per the national rules and regulation, maintaining the governance to meet the economic, social, cultural needs and appreciation of the members through a jointly owned enterprise. SCIA's guide of operating cooperative is a continue. The SCIA guides not only to cooperators for operating the cooperative business, but also to cooperative promoters, regulators, government, and civil societies worldwide. Moreover, SCI direct to the new generation, future leader, etc. in the 21st century. Cooperative and global challenge, another slide is, cooperative are social business, but they are not beyond the global effects. COVID-19 pandemic, extreme poverty, food security, climate change, financial crisis, access to education, technological innovation, all these are common global challenges. Cooperatives have owned SDGs and have proactively been implementing them with their own equity approaches at international, regional, and local level. For example, I'm going to for example, the national level federation could develop guidelines for all level of cooperative societies and unions in achieving 17th SDG. The unions and central level cooperative federation could start working with different level of government to formulate rules and regulation and do continuous lobbies, advocacy with center, province, and local level government to promote SDG and achieving. And now I'm going to continue. They build the social capital, unite people for their socio-economic, cultural, and environmental benefits driven by the SCI. The competitive advantage of cooperative approach is a way to fight against the global challenges. Challenges of SCI, Statement of Cooperative Identity. Cooperative contribute best to society. They should be developed as natural movement to formalize the informal economic, or as agents to narrow the gaps between haves and haves not. In some cases, government influence cooperative as an implementing instrument of their plan, policies, and programs pose challenge. Profit-seeking individual mindset, tendency of enjoying autonomy freely, taking cooperatives and forums of gaining political interests, etc. Challenges the true application of SCI in the operation of cooperatives. Cooperative way of overcoming SCI. Access of cooperative education to every segment of societies could be the first option to change the individual mindset into collective interest with good governance for the benefits of humanity. Intervention could be formal cooperative education in schools, college, and university, promotion of digitalization and innovation in cooperative is another option to overcome the challenges in the competitive world. Competitive advantage of SCI. The competitive advantage of the SCI is to attract youth, women, and marginalized segments of the society. The diversity of membership has opened possibilities of involving new generation as future leader. Fifth principle of training, education, and information provide opportunity to the newcomer through the school and college education. How to cooperative stakeholder support via SCI. The role of the national apex body is to safeguard the SCI in their own national context, linking with internal and external stakeholder. For example, I want to say the sixth principle, cooperation among cooperative, and also one of the values is solidarity. The National Cooperative Federation, any country's National Cooperative Federation could form a link and give access to primary, district, province, and central level cooperative. And this link will be a common platform to all cooperative requesting budget with local government. Such budget will be useful to develop human resource and use of advanced technology, cooperative business promotion, etc. And cooperative stakeholder support to SCI. United Nations resolution in 2001 and ILO recommendation 193 for the promotion of cooperative partnership with YAFIO, ILO for long-term European Union and other stakeholders shine a light on the growing awareness of the importance of cooperative in tackling poverty and inequality. This is my last slide as a summary. Cooperation among the cooperative direct us to work collaboratively within cooperative network based on SCI. Concern for community drivers deserve the separate identity of cooperative to collaborate with the government, development partners, and other agencies to enhance the wide range of partnership. Member democratic control deserve the supremacy of members for the true application of SCI. Thank you for your attention. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Omdevi Malla, for providing your perspective on the cooperative statement of cooperative identity and its application. So now I think we'll leave the floor open for discussions. So we'd like to request our members who have gathered in Iran to, one, if they have any questions, either to Professor Kurimoto or Ms. Omdevi Malla on their presentation, and also their initial comments on what they see on the statement of cooperative identity, how it's viewed in Iran and how it is put into practice.
Greetings to everybody. There are many things to discuss. I just want to summarize my discussion. There are some recommendations that I want to talk about. It's as if we are talking about a culture, a value.
Sorry, we are not able to hear the English version, the translator.
I'm trying to translate. There was voice problems.
Okay, okay.
About the indexes of cooperative identity in different organizations. In fact, I think that we need to work more on that, because if we want the cooperatives not to change into companies and enterprises and it shouldn't be just the name of the cooperative that the organization carries. These indexes help us to understand that for the cooperatives not to lose their way. Another point is that, which is related to worker cooperatives, specifically in our own cooperative. Actually, the stakeholders is the managing method of these cooperatives, which absolutely is different from the management of a company that has limited stakeholders. No area in terms of managing that, in fact, a facilitator who works in that area, I haven't seen. They have some meanings which is not actually compatible with the values of cooperatives. Universities and cooperatives that have worked in the field, there need to be a new area. If we need to be a company, we need to stay a cooperative, because many cooperatives start with a cooperative viewpoint, but they end to profit giving, especially in the long run. They might lose their way. It seems that the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that many expenses can be actually put aside. For example, the expenses of trips and traveling and visits. And these expenses can be added to actually data creating. This can help the education of different institutions. I think that ICA can focus more on creating contents which tell the successful experiences and contents that develop the personal and corporative development. And Even we do the same thing in our cooperatives. In schools, we should talk about the idea of cooperatives regarding the fact that many people have the experience in our school books in our 7th grade. In the beginning of one of the books, social book, I can say that this is not effective. This is the least effective model of education. The cooperatives trying to think of their own viewpoint. This educational viewpoint actually is a collaborative educational model. The nearest idea that can be created in the youth in order to create a field is cooperative education. But my thought is that cooperatives are able to create a viewpoint and develop that viewpoint. They shouldn't teach cooperative. It's not meaningful. It's nothing to be able to teach in a special course. I just want to end. We cannot teach the cooperative viewpoint to children and on the other hand do a monopoly game. It's not possible. So in a way that one person is winner. We cannot teach cooperative and tell them how to be intermediary. For example, we cannot teach them to buy in the wholesale and sell in the retail. This is not possible. I have seen it among our cooperators. For example, one of the outputs in one of our friends was that one of the children bought something in the wholesale and then he distributed with a better price in the retail. This is our problem. We need to connect the producer and the consumer. So we need to change the education of cooperatives in the new generation, in the youth. I think it is very important. We need to talk about it more, and it's not a simple work, but it is possible. Thank you very much.
Can I make comments? Baru?
Yes, yes.
So yes, please answer the question or make your comments.
Okay, I shall give some comments on the question or comments made by the speaker. Yes, there are many cooperatives in educational institutions, namely schools, elementary schools, and junior and high schools, and universities, colleges. And in Asia, we have very strong university campus cooperatives in many countries like Japan, Korea, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, India, and Sri Lanka, and Australia. And we have also a wide range of school cooperatives in Iran, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and others. So in this regard, Asia-Pacific region is most advanced in the cooperatives in educational institutions. So That is what we can be proud of. And there are many things we can do to educate young people in the spirit of cooperation by practicing, for instance, some small canteens, small shops in the schools or universities run by pupils and students. And we can assist students' pupils in their studies by providing books and stationeries and even food and computers, etc. So that is very important part of cooperatives in Asia-Pacific region. However, I should add one thing that is faced by university cooperatives in Japan because lockdown due to pandemic, most of the universities are closed down. So last year, most of the university campus cooperatives cannot operate. So in fact, they have to stop their activities. So now they are doing their operation through internet, through online. For instance, delivering books and food by delivery based on the orders made by students. But in any case, they are facing most serious difficulties. Of course, employees or doctors and nurses and the care workers in the health cooperatives and social welfare social service cooperatives are facing the direct threat of pandemic. So they are very careful not to be infected by the pandemic. And also, the consumer cooperatives are doing the running shops and home delivery. Also, they face the risk of contagion. So they are now doing business in very strict control of, so to say, sanitation control, not to be affected. So there are many things we have to do in the pandemics, and but in the long run, the education in the schools, university colleges is very important for the future development of cooperatives. In this regard, there are some cases of cooperative schools, for instance, in the UK. Some schools, public schools are run by cooperatives, but that is very exceptional case. But in many cases, especially in Asia, there are a wide range of campus cooperatives and school cooperatives. That is our strong point. We can encourage those school cooperatives, college cooperatives, so that they can nourish the spirit of cooperation among pupils, among students. That is my comment.
Thank you, Professor Kurimoto. Can I request members in Iran to, Professor Kurimoto mentioned about the pandemic and the impact it's had on the consumer and school cooperatives, university cooperatives in Japan and other places. So it'll be good to know, one, in terms of how the pandemic has affected the cooperatives in Iran, and two, is there, has it shown that cooperatives with their values and principles and the identity have been able to better demonstrate their working and their impact and their resilience in the current times? And also, I'd like to request that whoever is speaking to please just give your name and your organization so that our resource person and others can understand, can know where you're coming from and be better able to relate your question.
آقای بالو اگر 5 دقیقه به ما یه فرصت افتضاحی بدید و
Can you give us just 5 minutes? We are trying to take the questions from our colleagues, our members, and then we will ask the questions one by one from you.
Okay.
تصویرتون رو فقط ندارید. اگر اونجا بشینید، تصویرتون رو هم داشته.
Hello, Boris. Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Tamina Kashani. I'm delegate from Central Union of Rural and Agricultural Cooperatives of Iran. My question is about the measures which International Cooperative Alliance has provided for the cooperatives in this economic situation and pandemic, as you know, because our activity is basically related to business relation with other countries, export and import. I wonder to know if is there any solution that ICA provides for better marketing, better business relation with other countries, cooperatives in another countries. Thank you.
دوستان چالش ها رو بیان کردن که چه چالش هایی حالا به خصوص بین‌المللی و عالمی وجود داشته، اما نکته که دوستان پیگیر هستن اینن که آیا در بخش تعاون با پاندمی چه کار کرده است و آیا این بخش تعاون بودن توانسته است موثر باشه. به نظر میاد این سوال از اون طرف هم میشه پرسید، یعنی که اتحادیه بین‌المللی تعاون در یک فراگیری بزرگی مثل این چه هویتی میخواهد ایجاد کند که بتوانیم بگوییم اگر تعاونی هستیم. این شعار ما بود، این حرکت بخش تعاون بود که توانستیم عملکردی متفاوت با بخش اقتصاد عادی، بخش اقتصاد لیبرالی و بقیه داشته باشد که اون موقع بگیم بله اگر این بود در حوزه انسانی و در حوزه اقتصادی این دو تا عمل کرد، این دو تا آیتم شاخصه بخش تعاون این نماد نمود رو میتونیم.
حالا خودتون در مورد فعالیت‌هایی در میان انجام دادید شما می‌خواید صحبتی داشته باشید یا در این ما اصلا می‌پرسید
طبیعتاً ما به عنوان بانک توانستیم در این مدت بخش
میخواید معرفی کنید و اگر نکته‌ای دارید به طرف خارجی یا باریایی رسمی بفرمایید.
آقای بابا من رو داریم؟ شما
این اساس که تو باشن کنیم عرض سلام و روز بخیر دارم خدمت همه عزیزان.
Greetings, everybody. I am thankful for this meeting. I am from Tose Tawon Bank, TT Bank. The Tose Tawon Bank is a bank for the cooperatives in the problems of Corona. We try to do two main activities. First, the producing cooperatives in terms of effective businesses, for example, sanitary materials, and we supported them in order to be able to produce these necessary materials, for example, masks, etc. And secondly, we try to support other cooperatives that were affected in the Corona time and give them the money they needed. So we developed our support and gave them more time to pay back their installments, and we did not get the installments in a period of time. This was what we did and what we could help in banking area. Our request is that the ILO and ICA, does it have a very specific index so that we can introduce and we can use in the big pandemic like Corona? What specific index do you have that we can, guideline do you have for the banks? Thank you very much.
خدمت هیئت مدیره عزیز سلام عرض می‌کنم. من
Greetings to the board of directors. I'm Kashani. I am representative of the Supervision and Coordination Union of Rural and Agricultural Cooperatives of Iran, SCURA. My question is that regarding the pandemic and the economic recession that every country is faced today, ICA, what kind of measures have you taken so that transactions can happen? For example, the productions can be sold, and also the financial links between the cooperatives, how can it go on and continue? Thank you very much for your reply. In the name of God, I am Ali Reza Sharafi. I am CEO of Iran Oilseeds. One of the questions that I have, and the challenges that we've been facing, one of the challenges that we've been facing is that many times the interests of the cooperative and the interests of the stakeholder are contradicting. And our stakeholder, which are usually the oilseed companies, they can compete with us. Did you have these challenges in your own countries, and do you have a solution for that? how can one of the things that we can do to help get help from government, especially in the time of peak usage of oil. We had cooperation with the government, and we involved some part of the country in terms of distribution and retail networks and malls and department stores. We did not benefit from it. We just used the cooperation of the members. I would be thankful if you answer my previous question. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me just step in here again. I won't have answers for all these questions because, like I said, this particular session is focused on trying to look at the cooperative identity, the values and principles, and see how we are seeing that in practice and how we are applying them and what the issues are in relation to the cooperative values and principles. But then given the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the overarching concern is more in terms of how do we as cooperatives survive in this current situation. And it was interesting and good to hear some of the efforts which have been taken by members in Iran in terms of and which shows the difference that cooperatives have from other forms of businesses. One is in terms of trying to address needs, shifting. It was mentioned that even the bank, it moved into seeing how you could provide, looking at mass and delivering issues, things which were important. And also the fact that installments, the payments were deferred, given the situation. You had not required members to pay immediately, but the installments were deferred. And also the about the oil seeds, there was mention in terms of how you've looked at cooperation among cooperatives and how we benefit first rather than try to look at some of the profit issues. In relation to some of the questions which have been asked, one is in terms of how the first was in terms of how can better relationships be developed among cooperatives in order to help countries in terms of exports and link up with cooperatives in other countries. I think that's a very valid concern, very valid question. Which there are efforts being made. Again, it's much more not from an ICA perspective, but looking at it from country to country perspective in how these relationships can be developed. But from the ICA side, I think what we can do is to know what the specific requirements are and needs are, and to see how it can be directly, how the connections can be made. And I understand already ICC is linking up with cooperatives in Europe, with cooperatives in South Africa to see how this engagement can be built. In coming to the bank, the TT Bank, and the question in terms of has there been an index developed or what is it that ICA can do? I think I don't have an answer for that, but I can definitely, there is the International Cooperative Banking Association, which is the committee which deals with banks within the ICA. I can put you in touch with the chair of the ICBA, and in order for you to better know in terms of what the banking committee and what banks in the regions have done in order to be able to look at the needs of banking in particular. And regarding the question which was there in terms of challenges and the conflict of interest between cooperatives and other stakeholders, I think that's a question and an issue which is across in not just in Iran, but across countries in the region. And that's something which I would like to know from the oilseeds CEO himself in terms of how they have dealt with these challenges with different stakeholders, especially the government and other stakeholders. What is the experience of members in Iran to be able to address, look at cooperatives and the values and principles and identity, and see what is the what are the challenges that you all face in dealing with governments and other stakeholders?
آقای بالو این سوال دقیقا سوال من بود از شما که ببینم در رابطه با این چالش آیا راهکاری دارید یا
This is exactly my question, that what is your ways of dealing with this challenge? This is one of the biggest challenges that we face. Many of our stakeholders are the oil companies. In some plans, our works, our operations are conflicting with them, and we have a competition, and this is our biggest challenge. I told you, in terms of cooperating with the government, we don't have any problem, and we have a good cooperation with the government. Till now, more than 50,000 tons of our products have been distributed among the markets, and this is continuing, and we had a positive impact and output. The challenge that I discussed could be in different areas, and it could be in different plans that could happen. I just wanted to know whether you had this challenge or you have this challenge in your country, and what is your solution for this challenge?
Professor Kurimoto or Ms. Omdevi Malla, would you be willing to answer that question in terms of challenges, in terms of competition, and how cooperatives are dealing with competition from other actors?
Well, it's a very broad question. Always we are facing competition in the market, under the market economy. And for instance, consumer cooperatives are always competing with the private sector supermarkets and convenience stores. And agriculture cooperatives are competing with private traders. So it is very important to maintain the better understanding of the cooperatives among farmers, to understand why they have to cooperate in the cooperatives. Otherwise, they will be exploiting one by one by the private traders. That happened in the history many times. So that depends on the real benefits that farmers can feel from trading with cooperatives. Otherwise, they will prefer to go to the private traders. So in this regard, giving tangible benefits and of course, education on the values of cooperation is very important. This is applied to all sectors of cooperatives.
Mr. Balu? Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes. Just I also want to say something about that questions.
Yes, please.
In Nepal, this situation, we are not going to competition in another sector, another private business, but we feel now, because we have to going to competition in another sector like a private company, commercial bank. So we are going to hard work in merging system, small cooperative, we are going to merge first to develop a big fund and big cooperative, which spend a lot of money, which collect fund big money to give a service to all members, and can take loan, and our members also that, and then they can go competition business by our member. So we are going to one merging system, cooperative merging system. And also we are going now new technology in cooperative sector, like ATM service, and that internet banking system, that type of working we are also going now. And another is we don't have any schools cooperative and college cooperative in Nepal, but we are going started. You also know, we came in one group in my coordinator, and we are trying to make now bachelor level, master level cooperative course, and we are also making now course syllabus in Tribhuvan University, master level, bachelor level. And another one we are starting in 9, 10 and 11, 12 in our cooperative course. We also making syllabus with working our government, our Nepal government, and maybe we can start this new session in cooperative course, one merging system, and another is new technology in cooperative sector. Then we can go in competition with other partners, other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kurimoto and Ms. Omdevi Malla. So my question, follow-up question, which I would have for members in Iran, both Professor Kurimoto and Ms. Omdevi Malla have mentioned about, given the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of emphasis has gone towards technology. There is a much more emphasis on health. There is also the need to be, the services sectors and workers have been affected. So have cooperatives in Iran, how are they planning to look at some of these issues which have come up in relation to technology, in relation to health, in relation to worker and service related cooperatives?
Hello everybody, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Thank you for your perfect presentations. This is Dr. Sadu from Talc Insurance Company. I actually some questions in case of insurance. I want to know, from your point of view, in ICA, what's the role of insurance in strengthening the cooperatives and help them in building their cooperative identities? Do you have any statistical information in this relation? And two, to what extent the cooperatives in pandemic situations? And three, what actions did ICA to overcome the challenges arises from pandemic for helping cooperatives. For example, in Taiwan Insurance Company, we have developed some insurance products for indemnify the loss of income because of stopping some businesses due to COVID-19. Did ICA had some similar actions in relation to these challenges? Thank you.
Can I request the interpreter to again repeat the three questions? It didn't come across very clearly.
The question was in English. And,
yeah, I know, but we couldn't hear very clearly.
Okay.
من بیشتر سوالم تو حوزه بیمه بود. میخواستم بدونم که در واقع ICA چه اقدامی کرده در حوزه بیمه برای غلبه بر این چالش که در واقع کسب و کارها و تعاونی‌ها باش مواجه هستن تو دوران پاندمی کووید 19 و یکی از اقداماتی که در واقع شرکت ما به عنوان مثال تو ایران انجام داده تولید محصول پوشش بیمه‌ای توقف کسب و کار ناشی از کرونا بوده. میخوام ببینم اقدام‌های مشابهی ICA انجام دادن تو این حوزه، تجربهش رو دارن و آیا در واقع یک اطلاعات آماری تو این حوزه دارن، نقش بیمه رو میدونن که حالا تو بیمه‌های خرد چقدر میتونه حمایت بکنه از تعاونی‌ها برای اینکه در واقع اون عمیق‌سازی هویت تعاونی توشون اتفاق بیفته یا اینکه از کسب و کارشون حمایت بکنه توی دوران پاندمی. آیا دیدگاه خودشون بیشتر چی هست این حوزه؟
The lady is from Taiwan Insurance Company. She's asking more about the way that insurance can help the cooperatives, and she's asking whether you have any statistics about the insurance throughout the different cooperatives and how they can help the cooperatives. For example, she says that in our insurance company, we have created a new product, which is the insurance for the businesses that have been affected by the coronavirus, and she wants to know what is your method, what is your idea about deepening the cooperative a statement on cooperative identity in terms of insurance companies and small insurance companies. How can they help cooperatives and businesses, of course?
Okay. Professor Kurimoto or Omdevi Malla, would you have a response?
So far, the insurance cooperatives are making efforts to maintain the contracts with members, contractors. So they're offering the delayed installment, monthly installment of the premium, so that they can, the members can continue their insurance contract with insurance cooperatives. That is one way to serve the members' interest who wish to be insured against many kinds of the risks for health, for fire, for car accidents, etc. But now, because of the lockdown due to pandemic, many consumers and the producers are facing the financial problems. So, but they cannot live without insurance services to hedge risks of their lives. So to continue the insurance contract, the insurance cooperatives are offering the delayed monthly installment of the premiums. That is what I have heard. I don't know the special products, insurance products against the pandemic, effects of pandemic. I have never heard about that.
Mr. Balu, we don't have any cooperative insurance in Nepal, But that time we make we insurance to lobby a private company, insurance company, and we do all board of director and our member who is our cooperative society member, we make all facilities to insurance service. We give insurance service. And we also give time to pay loan to all our society's member. And we also talk with our government, registrar government, and we make a meeting many times, meeting with the registrar, Nepal Sarkar, and we did meeting many times, and we give some time, 1 year time to pay loan. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, and if I can also add a couple of points which we've seen in the insurance industry in particular. One, I think across all countries, the insurance industry has been badly hit because there's been a lot of call on people claiming their insurance, and also in terms of looking at premiums and how the premiums get affected because of issues like this pandemic. What we are seeing is also, I think, a lot of emphasis being given on health. People are now trying to look at, given the pandemic, health and health-related insurance is becoming more, people are opting for it. So in countries, we are seeing that health is an area where people are more interested in. Two is also in terms of looking at the needs of farmers being affected because of climate change, not just the pandemic, but climate change is going to become a bigger issue. So we are seeing more and more interest in ensuring that farmers and the kind of insurance that would be needed for them. And third is, I would also recommend ICMIF, ICMIF, is the International Cooperative Mutuals and Insurance arm of which looks at insurance in particular. And I would encourage you all to visit their website, ICMIF, I think it's icmif.org, where there is a lot of information about the responses which insurance cooperatives have made, and also in terms of what the ICMIF thinks cooperatives' response should be. There is a lot of information and resources which are available, and I'd like to encourage you all to visit their site. And again, ICMIF is a cooperative and it's part of the ICA umbrella. So definitely, if you all are not members already of ICMIF, then this would be a good opportunity for some of the insurance sectors to look at how you can join and how you can know more about what the practices are and experiences of cooperatives in the insurance sector. I'd like to move on and ask the question in terms of how do cooperatives in Iran, in terms of looking at the values and principles and the identity, what are the efforts which we need to do in order to encourage more young people to be interested in cooperatives and to join them and be part of cooperatives? How do you all see that going forward happening in Iran?
Hello again.
در ارتباط با اینکه در واقع در این
I go back to my earlier question in time of Corona, what challenges we had and what outcomes did we reach? And then I will answer the question. Our cooperative has used the Corona pandemic and from the very beginning with the presupposition that they started their far remote school, and so we started and we progressed in that area. So we found this situation a stable situation, and then we created new possibilities, for education. For example, hybrid education, which decrease the rate of education, the cost of education. Hybrid education that we planned and created is in a way that the educations that can be done remotely will be done remotely. Social education will be done in presence at schools. So this also helps the educational justice because the tuitions are going to be decreased. Therefore, in terms of our own cooperative, which is Pishkaman Rah Roshd Cooperative Educational Complex, the values of cooperatives, as I mentioned earlier, cannot be just one educational hour or one educational unit. The students who are growing up in a school, they see this cooperative and cooperation and collaboration and integrity among their teachers, of course, in the hard times, social times, how their school is reacting in terms of earthquakes, coronavirus, and other calamities. They learn that they need to be responsible towards their society. And this is one of the principles of cooperative, which is related to the social issues. When they see that the school is not empty, the personnel are there, the number of the teachers has not decreased. They understand that in difficult conditions also we can be together and we can reduce costs. And we do not cause people to lose their jobs. For example, many women who give services, especially they have services in kitchens and so on, they lost their jobs. So we created a unit of creating masks and sanitary products. And also we gave them the sewing machines that we had in our school. So they started to begin the production of the masks. We gave them the insurance money so that they don't find any problem. For the teachers, we could create side incomes, especially in terms of remote teaching for the people who live in towns and far areas, which wasn't possible before Corona time. We also created incomes directly and indirectly, the reflection of which was in the eyes of the students and their parents. And that shows that showed them this school is different from other schools, and the people in this school stay together and nothing changes in terms of problems. And all of them are based on the look, the viewpoint of collaborative and cooperative work. if we just thought about our existence, not our profits. So if we didn't think so, it wouldn't happen as it did. In order to be able to stay together and in order to be able to pay the wages and the salaries, and we increase the number of students with less tuition, this is a very good strategy in order to support our people. This is all taken from the values and principles of cooperative. And so students are going to learn indirectly in these situations to think about cooperation and collaborative work.
Thank you very much for that. Are there others type of cooperatives, be it agriculture or in other work, where you're seeing how are you all looking at the needs of youth and trying to bring them into cooperatives?
Hello again. Regarding the main area of the Central Organization for Rural Cooperatives of Iran is producing the agricultural goods, especially since we had many limitations in the time of Corona, but we try to help our members, which are about 5 million people throughout the country. We just provided them with the goods they needed for their agriculture. We also provided the fruit needed for Nowruz, which is a celebration in Iran, throughout the whole country. Mr. Bali, if you let me also, I need to mention a point.
Sure.
It is related to the collaboration of government with the cooperatives regarding the principle 4 of cooperatives. The cooperatives in other countries, what kind of collaborations do they have with their government? Do the governments give special duties to the cooperatives? And also ICA, what is the role of ICA here? For example, cooperatives regarding the governments, how do you connect with the governments? If you have any obstacles regarding a government, what is the reaction of ICA and what is the stance of ICA in that? Does it interfere for the problems of the cooperatives? We have a good regulation and law in terms of cooperatives, but in some years we see that the regulations are not put to action very well. I just want to see if ICA has a special role in collaboration with governments. For example, if the cooperatives have problems, can ICA help in solving these problems?
Can I just ask one question before I answer that? In terms of Alireza had mentioned about regulation not put in place. So what are the kind of issues more in relation to Iran that there are between cooperatives and the government.
من به طور مشخص به عنوان
Specifically, as an example, I tell you, in the regulations which is related to cooperatives, the duty of government is policy making and creating big policies. We know it as such, and it is being mentioned in the regulations. The implementation of these rules are given to the non-government sectors. We see that in the implementation of these rules, which are related to the rules of the corporates, we see that governments also exist there, also are present there. I just want to see that what's your response, what's your solution for this, that the duties of governments are separated from the duties of cooperatives. And I also want to know that whether you have the same problems in other countries or not.
I will answer from the ICA perspective, but I'd like to request Professor Kurimoto and Om Devi in terms of how the relationship between cooperatives and the government in your respective countries.
Okay. I shall answer on this question. Basically, the government has a role to regulate all the entities in the market, and in accordance with the law. And the cooperative law stipulates the regulations, how to supervise the cooperative's operations. And so that is almost common in most of the countries. However, it depends on the sectors. In Japan, the agricultural cooperatives and the financial cooperatives are very heavily regulated and protected by the government. So taxation and the policy measures have been implemented to help agricultural and financial cooperatives in solving problems. But in case of consumer cooperatives, there is no such an government assistance to cooperatives. So in this regard, as in most of the Western countries, the consumers cooperatives are quite independent and autonomous. So it depends on the sectors and depends on the countries. But generally speaking, in Asia, most of the Asian countries, government has very dominant role in assisting and controlling cooperatives. And that is what we should change. So that has been strong efforts have been made in these 3 decades. As I have mentioned, in 1990, the ICA had convened the first cooperative ministers conference to rethink, to re-establish the partnership on the basis of equality. The government cannot dictate cooperatives to do something. For instance, they cannot appoint the top managers of the top presidents of the cooperatives. They cannot make the business plan for the cooperatives. They cannot pay for the deficit for the cooperatives. So, but that had happened in the former socialist countries. So in this regard, cooperatives had been, so to say, like a state department, but that failed. So after the ICA identity statement was made in 1995, we have installed the fourth principle, autonomy and independence. That means that the government should play a role as regulator based on the cooperative laws, while the cooperatives should be independent and autonomous in making their own decisions and in running their business by their own. So that is the internationally accepted principles. Of course, in case of the difficulties like such a pandemic, the government had extended its helps to the private sectors to prevent from the contagion, to help the private sector to rehabilitate its business operations after a pandemic. But that is only temporary measures that cannot be extended to the normal time. So if such pandemic, the threat of pandemic is over, the government should retreat, should remove such special measures from the cooperatives so that the cooperatives can develop independently, autonomously to help to meet their members' needs. That is the principle, what cooperative principles and values are dictating us.
Thank you, Professor Kurimoto. Ms. Omdevi Malla, how about the relationship between in Nepal between cooperatives and the government, and how have you all addressed some of these challenges?
Thank you, Mr. Balu. We have a good relationship in government and cooperative movement, but it's issue-wise. Sometime we get a fully support from cooperatives, from government sector to cooperative. Sometime we could not get. Suppose, for example, we want to go our is a loan department, information sector. We want to go new loan information sector, cooperative loan information center. We want to make that, but we cannot get these issues support from government. But we are fighting with the government, and we are convincing them also. So, but sometimes we get fully support, just like we make our very cooperative friendly ads. We also put our constitution in cooperative, one of the financial economy sector in Nepal. This and I am, but cooperative government, they give, we have first one government in Nepal, but we have now 3 tiers of government. You also know that is a local level government, province level government, and one central level government. So first we have any district level, one division cooperative office who is registered our cooperative in there. But they already division cooperative office hand over in local level government and province level government. So they could not make it's a good cooperative known staff in there. Also, they could not manage to promote and manage to cooperative to budget. So they could not give a well service our member. That is another problem, because starting time any country this problem. And another many issues we fully get cooperation and support from our ministry, also our government, just like we get money 500,000 5 crore like 50 million budget any time from government to manage our cooperative training and other activities to promote our district cooperative union. So also this financial minister also to call us and to make a one table meeting, and what is the problem in cooperative, you come and we will talk together and we will solve that problem. That type of behavior also we can get sometime. But everybody knows in Nepal now our political situation is not continue go stable now. So it's a little bit disturbed in working, but we have a good relationship. It is that.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Kurimoto and Omdevi Malla. Let me add my perspective from the ICA side. I think this discussion that we are having today in terms of looking at the statement of cooperative identity, which has the definition, values, and principles. So I think ICA strongly promotes these and would like to see how these are put in place. And so whenever there is an issue around the identity and a conflict in that, I think that's where ICA steps in. Like Professor Kurimoto said, it's the government's mandate to put in place policies, to have laws, to have regulations, etc. But then if there is a conflict with the cooperative values and principles, I think that's where the ICA steps in. And one good example is in Japan a few years back, when the government was trying to look at the JSNSHU, the apex organization of agricultural cooperatives, and trying to undermine it. Then the Japanese cooperatives approached ICA in terms of saying, can you talk to the government on our behalf? And so the ICA looked at it in terms of the principles to see which principles was it directly affecting. And it was on that basis that the argument was made. So I think ICA's role comes in when there is a conflict in terms of the values and principles. And in order to ensure that the governments and even the departments, ministries responsible for this are made aware. Like Professor Kurimoto said, we've been having the ministers' conference. We've had 10 so far, where we provide a platform for cooperatives and the ministries responsible to come on the same platform and hear their issues, and to also put it across that how the cooperative principles and values are in practice, how do the governments look at that. And very recently, as part of the European Union project, we've done the legal framework analysis in terms of doing the study of each country to look at what are the how is the law in place, how cooperative friendly is it in terms of an enabling environment for cooperatives. And what we do is to get in and make suggestions to work again with the apex organization. ICA does not directly deal with the government. Again, given we are member-based organizations, our members are based in countries, apex organizations represent cooperatives. So we work with the apex organization to advocate with the government. And an example is in many countries, now there is more and more interest from young people to start cooperatives, be it in technology, be it energy. But one issue which comes is in terms of members. As we know, cooperatives have a long history, and they started with agriculture and credit and consumer. And many of these require that you have a large member base. So cooperatives in some countries, you need to have 50 members to form a cooperative. Some other places, it's 100. But then when young people want to start cooperatives, asking them to go and bring in 50 people or 100 people is difficult. So again, the thing is, can governments look at the membership requirements? And in many countries, because of the work done, the number of members has come down to 5. And in some places, it's 3 also. So that's one thing, looking at the enabling environment to see how it can be facilitated. And another example is, we talk about technology. But in many countries, again, the interest of young people is in startups. They want to start up. But cooperatives are not looked at as startup, whereas we should be. Because when you look at essential definition of a cooperative, it's people coming together, putting their money, starting a business, which is what startups do. So how do we ensure that cooperatives are not neglected in these emerging areas? How do we create an enabling environment for cooperatives? I think these are areas where ICA works with members to see what is the enabling environment for cooperatives, keeping in mind the values and principles on which we work. But we don't go tell a government you should do this or you should not do this, as long as there is no contradiction with the values and principles. There one last broad question, and then I think I know because of technical issues we started a bit late, but I should also keep in view the time that we've gone. So the question which I have again for members in Iran is, how do you all see the cooperative values and principles in practice in your day-to-day operations? How is it put in place? What are some of the challenges, and what are some of the issues that you all encounter when putting into practice the values and principles?
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldu, for your explanation and clear elaboration on the issue. Thank you for giving us your experiences and the way to collaborate with governments. Since we are actually over the time, my suggestion is that you send your questions to the members, also to the members of ITC, our subsections, which are our sub-departments, about the questions and your last question, and we will send our answers in a written form so that we could answer more comprehensively, and also we can give you a general overview of the collaboration and the increasing collaboration in terms of increasing the quality of cooperatives.
Okay, I think thank you for that, Ali Reza. I think in the note that we sent, there are some the 4 broad questions which we felt that we should discuss today. One was in terms of how do cooperative values and principles in terms of day-to-day operations? What are the issues? What are the challenges? How does it come into play? That was one. The second related to how do the values and principles, and we've talked about it in terms of government and the cooperatives and other stakeholders, what are the issues and challenges and how do we address that? And the third was in terms of trying to look ahead in terms of how we engage youth and how we also look at some of the new areas which are coming in to see how we can position cooperatives, given that we are value-based, we are principle-based, we look at members' interests. So how do we position cooperatives better? And the fourth was in terms of looking at the COVID-19 pandemic and how we can, what are the opportunities which have arisen and how do we kind of leverage on that? So those are the 4 broad questions. So I will definitely send them across. And I'd also like to thank all the members in Iran. I think you all have raised some practical issues, because you all are going through some of these challenges, be it in terms of in the insurance sector, trying to meet the needs of financial sector, the education sector, agriculture sector, in terms of trade. I think they are all very real issues. Like I said, one, as far as the banking goes, I will connect you all with the ICBA, which is the banking international arm of the banking sector so that you all are able to engage with them and understand and ask your question. Even with the insurance, I mentioned about ICMIF, which is the umbrella organization for insurance cooperatives. So I'd like to encourage you. I will send the details. I'll send the contact information so that you all are able to connect and be able to better get your phone. They are more the technical experts. Some of us are more knowledgeable in certain sectors and are more generalists. So we'll not be able to answer your specific sector related questions, but we can definitely connect you all to them. And so let me, I think we will send you the 4 questions which we have, and we look forward to your responses to that. So let me thank Professor Kurimoto for your time, Ms. Omdevi Malla for your time. And I'm sure you all have also understood and heard some of the issues and concerns and challenges which our members in Iran have posed. So it will also be your input also wherever you think you can provide support will be very valuable. I'd also like to thank all our members in Iran. Thank you very much for coming together, asking your questions, and again, being members of ICA and engaging with us and responding to our requests whenever we've asked. We value it a lot. So thank you very much for being here today and taking part of this discussion. And this is not the end of the discussion. This will be a continued discussion because the statement of cooperative identity is central to what we are as cooperatives. So we would constantly need to be looking into this in terms of understanding how it's put into practice, what are the issues. And like I said, in December, the ICA is going to have its Congress in Seoul. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to take part in this Congress. And the Congress is going to be, given the COVID-19 situation, it's going to be held both in person in Seoul, and also there'll be opportunity to take part in it online. So it's going to be a hybrid in times. So one of you all said, you all have in education, you moved to hybrid. Even the ICA, its Congress will be in a hybrid mode. So even if you're not able to travel or there are issues in travel, even though, like it was mentioned, we've been able to save on the travel budget because there's been no travel. But if you all are able to travel, yes, most welcome. And I should mention here that the ICA Asia-Pacific is going to have its regional assembly during the Congress. We need to hold our board elections. And as per the ICA statute, board elections need to be held in person. So that's why we are holding the assembly together with the Congress. So we'd like to welcome our members in Iran to be in person and vote for the new board. But for those who are not able to participate in person, the Congress is open. It will be in an online fashion. So I would like to encourage you all to register and be part of this Congress, which is going to discuss this very important issue of cooperative identity and its relevance in the current time. And it's also going to look at it across sectors. It's going to look at insurance, it's going to look at technology, agriculture, consumer. So I'm sure there will be interest for each of you in the Congress. So I'd like to encourage you all to be part of join us during the Congress. So I'll close here and thank everyone for making the time and being part of the discussion. We appreciate it very much.
Bye-bye now.
I also appreciate your presence, Mr. Balu, Mr. Kurimoto. I thank you. Mrs. Mala, I thank you too. Thank you for coming. I should express my thanks to all of you for the opportunity that we had together, for the opportunity that you gave us. and it was a very great opportunity so that we could be with our Iranian members, and also we could learn a lot from your discussions and points and comments. Thank you, Mr. Akira Kurimoto, for coming to our session from Japan, and Ms. Devi Malla from Nepal. I hope that we will continue these discussions and we will hold further collaborations in the future. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Balu.
And thank you to the interpreter. I think you've done an amazing job. Very difficult job trying
Thank
to
you very
balance
much.
both
Thank you
sides.
very much.
I think you've done
It's
very well.
kind of you.
So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And one last thing, we will share the presentation made by Professor Kurimoto and Ms. Om Devi Malla so that you all have it in hand. And if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to them. So thank you again, and wish you all a good day, good evening, good afternoon. And thank you for your time.
Goodbye to all. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.